This film stands as the highest rated horror movie of the year, offering a deeper meaning than you'd first expect. On the surface, it tells a terrifying story about a group of teenagers and how their attempts to access the spiritual world goes very, very wrong. At its core is Mia, a vulnerable teenager grappling with profound grief following her mother's sudden death, which she really struggles to accept. The intensity of her pain leads her to distance herself from her grieving father and her home. She starts to seek solace in her friends and parties as a means of escape. And during these parties, Mia and her friends introduce a strange figurine, a hand, into their home. They start beckoning spirits with the words, "Talk to me." These spirits manifest and, with their consent, will possess them, revealing the hand's true nature as an embalmed medium's hand and a gateway to the spiritual world. As the kids become aware of the potential dangers, they impose a 90-second possession limit. However, the spirits prove themselves to be clever, finding ways to surpass this restriction to latch on further, later tormenting Mia and her friends and manipulating them into making very questionable decisions. The meaning behind this film is incredibly dark, but it's also extremely sad and somber. Horror, although often underestimated as a genre, is amazing in the way that it often depicts metaphors to describe real-life horrors of common struggles. For example, Smile was a film entirely about how childhood trauma can terrorize you in adulthood if not appropriately dealt with. They used a demon as a metaphorical representation of that dormant trauma. Talk to Me, however, is a tale of grief, and not just grief as a singular experience, but grief that is shown in its full intensity, in its harrowing, painful, and raw experience that is so intense that it often leaves loved ones lost in a world where they also now want to escape. This will commonly lead people to debilitating addictions. The grief experienced by Mia causes her to desire an escape in every form. She will self-distance from anyone who reminds her of the pain and constantly hides out at friends' houses as her first form of escapism and solace. This then elevated into her attending parties to seek solace and distraction, and then finally evolving into a darker form of escapism, which is experimenting with the spiritual world. This hand could act as a representation of drug use. The correlation between grief and drug use is far too common, and it seems to be very well encapsulated as a metaphor throughout this film. From getting high off the adrenaline in that party setting to the sketchy bus handoff scene, the hand appears to be gravely similar to the way that drugs are used and acted upon. So, when Mia gets trapped in the cycle of addiction and this spiritual world starts tormenting her and taking control of her, she gradually becomes more and more unreliable. She becomes erratic, irrational. She starts making very poor decisions, and these lead her to lose the love and trust of her surrounding loved ones, which, as we know, is very similar to the way that drug addiction impacts relationships and real-life situations. And Mia continuously believes that the solution lies in the very thing that brought her this torment to begin with, the hand. So, with several attempts to resolve these issues, the hand continuously gets resummoned by her and continues to suck her in deeper or torment her further. Like, there's a certain point where you just get frustrated as a viewer, like, why do you keep going back to this? Why do you keep doing this? Like, it is not helping you, right? But it is so similar to the way that people probably, speak to those who are sucked into addiction. Also, the spirits in the film were so manipulative that it even confused us as the viewer. Many of us were unsure who to trust, and then later on we start to understand who's not to be trusted by the end of the film. So Mia's mother, although convincing enough to be a loving spirit, is not actually Mia's mother, but she's an evil spirit who's posing as Mia's mother in order to get Mia to fall deeper in this darkness and take her friends with her. And this could symbolize the lure of drugs, where people will feel so compelled by those inner demons and urged on by their addiction's whispers and just influenced so deeply by the people around them to be trapped in that same cycle. Mia's mother initially appears protective, kind, and driven to help Mia, but then she suggests that the key to Mia's salvation lies in killing Riley and sacrificing his soul. She basically assures Mia that he'll find peace and that this task is a very big source of importance for Mia. But then Mia starts to hesitate and prolong the process, and so the spirit gradually transforms into something darker, and you can start to see like she starts to rot, she becomes more corrupt and just increasingly terrifying. And then this transformation intensifies the longer that Mia delays Riley's death. And then things continue to take a turn for the worse, and the spirit manipulates Mia with illusions that lead her to doubt her own father and then ultimately stab him. By this point, it's evident that this is not Mia's mother. This is an evil spirit posing as Mia's mother and trying to manipulate Mia and like just mess with her mind. And connecting this to my interpretation of this film being about addiction, this could mirror the violence that often erupts when someone is under the influence and in such a highly irrational state of mind. In the conclusion, Mia chooses to sacrifice herself instead of Riley, and this confirms the falsehood of that spirit's claims. And that was not Mia's mother. It was a very dark spirit that was like manipulating and lying to Mia. Because unlike that spirit's claims, Riley does indeed heal and he does recover over time. And this also goes back to what the character on the bus noted, is that spirits will weaken the longer they inhabit the body, which can also be seen as a representation of addiction becoming less debilitating with time away from it. However, Mia embodies the tragic character. She couldn't escape her addictions and it led to her own death. And that's when she ends up transforming into the dark spirit on the other side of the embalmed hand, offering a very thought-provoking perspective. We quickly see that those connecting with Mia were foreigners, and this could represent the global distribution of drugs reaching every corner of the world and exposing people to its dangers everywhere. Thank you for watching this video. Let me know what you think of this interpretation, if you agree with it, if you don't agree with it, and if you don't agree with it, what was your interpretation of the movie? Leave a comment below and let me know what your thoughts are.